Hi guys, Dan here from Canada Abroad, and thanks so much for tuning in. Today we are going to be talking about what you can expect from Canadian immigration in 2022. So it is the middle of December and we are coming to the end of a very long and disappointing year, to be honest, for Canadian immigration. So we are hoping for a more positive outlook for 2022. So we are going to go over some of the key things that we will see coming up in 2022 and what you can expect from Canadian immigration. Because if we're being honest, I hope Santa put them on the naughty list because they have just been not so great to prospective immigrants this year. They're not very transparent or forthcoming with information, and it's been extremely frustrating. So let's take a look at what we can expect from them for 2022. So the first thing that we are going to be looking at is the immigration targets for 2022. So the good news is they are higher than they were for 2021. We are looking at a target of about 411,000 new immigrants in 2022. Now, what's important to remember with those targets though is it's not just, invitations to apply through express entry. What this target is, it's the actual number of visas that are issued. So the immigrant visas that are issued to people to allow them to move over to Canada as permanent residents. So it doesn't always translate from express entry invitations to apply to this target, because you also have to remember with these immigration targets, it's all immigration categories. So that is your family class, which is spouses, dependent children, parents, grandparents. It is your refugee claimants. It is the economic classes, which is the federal skilled worker, federal skilled trade, Canadian experience class, and there's provincial nominees. There's the TR to PR pathway that was just for this year. So it's all programs that lead to permanent residence that go towards that total. But if we are looking at 2022, we are expected to welcome more immigrants than we have in previous years. So that is a positive. And there has been no note that this number would be decreased, only that maybe it could be increased if the immigration minister feels that we did not get enough immigrants this year. And the reason we might not have gotten enough immigrants this year is due to a serious application backlog with Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. Because of the pandemic, we obviously know this is going on, but they haven't had their staff working at full capacity. Some people couldn't work because they couldn't access things remotely. A lot of things going on, as everyone knows, trying to work from home and capacity at the offices. So this has a major effect because the number of backlogged applications, now this was as of July, so obviously things would have changed slightly, but as of July, they said that they had a full application backlog of 1.8 million applications. So there was over 500,000 of those applications that were for permanent residency. Almost 750,000 of those were temporary residencies, so that would be your foreign workers, international students, so your work and study permits. And then applications for citizenship as well would be included in that. There's about 380,000 in that backlog. So if you're sitting out there and you're like, oh, my file is not being processed, I'm not hearing anything from them, you're one of the 1.8 million people. So unfortunately, you're not alone. So don't be too stressed out if you're not hearing anything back. The other thing is, we know with Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, they love to say, yes, log into your portal to check the status of your application. Well, the status doesn't change really, except to say your medicals have been processed, your biometrics were added, background check is in process, but it'll sit like that until you get a passport request. So there's no way to know what's going on unless you do the access to information request for your GCMS notes. But then sometimes that doesn't give you a lot of clues. It's just, okay, the last time someone looked at this was 2019 or 2020. What's going to happen with it now? Well, the good thing that I can say right now is that they have been issuing a lot of overtime for their employees to work through this backlog. So in the last 6 weeks, I've seen more movement on the immigration applications that I've done for clients than I have since the pandemic started. So we're getting requests for new medical exams because old ones have expired. And once those new medicals have been completed, then they're requesting the passport. So at least they are finalizing applications and issuing visas. And these were applications for federal skilled workers. So that's a positive thing finally on these applications that have been sitting for so long. We've seen study permits going through nice and quick, normal processing times on those, same with visit visas. So some things are going quite smoothly, some things are still stuck in this backlog, and it just seems to be the luck of the draw where you're sitting. Some people's applications are going much quicker than others. It could just be which office it was diverted to. There's not always a rhyme or reason to why somebody's is processed before yours. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with your application. It really could just be that whoever it's been allocated to has too many files in front of yours, or they're just slower. So just keep that in mind as well. So with the backlog, it's had a huge effect on express entry and other immigration programs. Now, the one we get asked about the most is express entry, because we haven't seen a draw that has been either an all category draw or a federal skilled worker draw since December of 2020. So it's been a year now. And the frustrating thing is Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada never made any official announcement to let people know that they wouldn't be picking federal skilled workers this year. They could have saved everyone a lot of time and money to say, hey, look guys, we're gonna put the federal skilled worker draws on hold for a year, come back in 2022. Great, people would have probably delayed doing their language tests and their education assessments because those do have an expiry date, but they weren't transparent. So again, that's the issue we're always seeing with them. Backhanded comments were made by the immigration minister that, yeah, because of the backlog, we weren't able to take on these new applications. Well, they should have made this public knowledge to everybody. Instead, we've all been sitting and guessing and assuming. But basically, they have said that because of the backlog, they couldn't take on the new applications, and that's why they were limiting the express entry draws. Yes, they had to continue the provincial nomination draws, because when a provincial nomination is issued to somebody, it has an expiry date. So that person has to be drawn and submit their application for permanent residence before it expires. So at least they were doing that. But we do now know that the federal skilled workers weren't selected because of the immigration backlog, or at least that's the story that they're going with. So as the backlog gets cleared, we should see the federal skilled workers get drawn again in 2022. But is it going to be January, February, March? We have no idea. And until IRCC makes an official statement, we're all just going to be using our crystal balls and trying to predict this. But there's no actual official date that we can go on. Now, coming up also in 2022, some things that are going to directly impact express entry is they have said that they are going to change the way that they pick people from the system. Now, as we know with them, again, no official statement. They probably won't make any kind of official statement until the day before it is implemented. But if we look at the history of Canada's immigration system and how it works, they're likely going to make changes either to the comprehensive ranking system score and how people are issued with points, or they are going to do something to restrict the occupation codes that can apply to express entry. And most notably, probably with the federal skilled workers. Because right now there's over 8,000 job titles that are eligible, and not necessarily all of those are actually in demand in Canada. So they want to make sure that they are basically cherry picking the best applicants for the country and the people that we need. So that could either be in the form of a list of occupations that is accepted and only people on that list can apply, or it could have an exclusion list. So everyone can apply except people with work experience in these categories. So we are going to have to wait until they make an official announcement, but those are potentially what those changes could look like for 2022. The other major change that is going to be coming in 2022, and it's expected for fall, so maybe around September, the date could change, but right now they've said fall 2022, is that the NOC 2021 will be implemented in that time. So it has been posted, it is live on the website, but even though it's called NOC 2021, It's only going to be implemented in 2022. And this is important because as anybody who's trying to immigrate as a federal skilled worker, the Canadian experience class, you have to have a skilled work history. So when we look at the occupation codes, they rank it O, A, B, C, and D. And right now, only OAB is eligible for the federal skilled worker and the Canadian experience class. C and D is not. But with the new NOC system, they are adding a 6th level. So now there's going to be 6 levels, and they're called tier levels. So one of these levels is basically going right in the middle of B and C. And some B level occupations are getting downgraded into this new category. So what we're all waiting to hear is if these occupations that went from B to the new category are still going to be eligible for the Canadian experience class or federal skilled worker or any other program that exists at the moment that requires that skill level. It's also important for anybody who's looking at coming to Canada on a work permit, because if the main applicant works in a skilled position right now, so again, O, A, and B, their spouse can get an open work permit. But going forward with the new NOC system in the fall of 2022, depending on how your job is rated then, your spouse may no longer be eligible for that open work permit. So it's going to have direct implications in all parts of immigration. But again, we need to wait and find out directly from IRCC what tier levels they are going to be considered for skilled work experience going forward. So my recommendation is if you are eligible for any of the programs right now with the current work experience you have, try to get into the system so that hopefully you can get picked before those changes come in case you're affected. If you're at a skill level OA, I don't think you're going to have much of an issue. It's just more those B level occupations that are getting pushed into that new category that there could be a bit of a problem. So O and A, you're probably not going to have any issues unless, of course, they start restricting occupation codes for the federal skilled workers. Then we might see a bit of a change there. But again, a lot of what ifs and a lot of unknowns. But we know that these new NOC codes are coming in the fall of 2022. The next thing that we are going to be looking at is the IEC season for 2022. So this is the International Experience Canada class or program. And most people might know it as a working holiday. There's also the young professionals category and the internship pathway. What this program does is people from eligible countries of a certain age, usually between 18 and 30 or 18 and 35, can get an open work permit for Canada based on their citizenship and their age, and having a certain amount of money available, about $2,500 Canadian. But what we saw this year, which was very unusual, was usually with the working holiday, you don't need a job offer. You can just go into the system based on your citizenship and age. Because of the COVID restrictions this year in 2021, they did require you to have a job offer. But then in September of 2021, when they lifted the requirement that visitors couldn't come into Canada, they lifted the requirement for a job offer. So it sounds complicated, but basically after September, if you wanted to apply for a working holiday, you no longer had to have a job offer as long as you were fully vaccinated. So 2022, we're going to see the same thing. You can go into the system and try through the IEC. If it's working holiday, you won't need a job offer. Young professionals and internship, you always had to have one to begin with, but working holiday, you won't. But you're going to have to be vaccinated. Because the big trend for 2022 for everybody is you're going to need to be vaccinated if you want to get into Canada. And it just, depending what you're coming for, the dates are going to be a little bit different. But we do know IEC participants are going to need to be vaccinated if you want to participate. We don't know when the season is going to open. This year we saw it open around March. Given the backlog that we have, I don't think we're going to see it open in January. They could surprise us if they manage to get things under control, but it's probably not going to be as early as we're used to. It might be, a March start or a February start. But you can, subscribe to the channel here or follow IRCC on Twitter and you'll see updates for that as it becomes available. The other thing with the IEC is the quotas. So this year, Canada didn't fill its quotas for the IEC work permits. They didn't pick enough people. So we might see them maybe push some of that quota into the 2022 season. If they do that, I mean, the thinking behind it is so many of the working holiday participants, they really drive the Canadian economy during certain seasons. I mean, they're working at ski hills, they're working at resorts, they're working at restaurants, hospitality. So a lot of things to do with tourism, travel, all of those industries. And right now we're having a shortage of those workers. So they really need to bring these people back in. I mean, if you go to any restaurant around here, they're hiring in all positions. They just don't have enough staff. And, you know, those are the types of positions that people on working holidays traditionally fill. So hopefully we are going to see them completely fill their quotas next year and maybe give some extra spots to compensate for what was lost this year. But we'll have to see what quotas they finalize in 2022. The last thing that we need to talk about is COVID vaccinations. And this goes directly into travel restriction. It's very important because a lot of people, you know, as their visas get issued, they need to travel into the country and they need to make sure that they're actually going to be able to travel. So right now, if you're not vaccinated, if you're coming for work, study, immigrate, other reasons, you may be allowed in. You'll have to quarantine for a specific period of time and have to do several COVID tests. But as of January 15th, basically everybody who is coming into Canada is going to need to be vaccinated with a few limited exemptions. So they've said if you're an international student, you need to get in here before the 15th of January and have enough time to quarantine before classes start. Because after the 15th of January, if you're not vaccinated, you're not going to be let into the country. So a lot of people, they're going to have to start planning ahead. I mean, that's only a month away from where we are today. So you need to make sure that you're vaccinated and the vaccine you have is actually accepted and recognized by Canada. If it's not, you're going to need to make a plan to either get into the country before this deadline or stop in a third country on your way and get vaccinated. But the problem is from your date of full vaccination, so 2 doses, it has to be 14 days after that you're entering the country. So there's a lot of things and working pieces that you need to consider before trying to get on your plane to Canada. The other thing is once you get into Canada, right now you have to be vaccinated to take any internal flights or hop on a bus or a train. So depending where you land in Canada, if you need to get somewhere else, if you're not vaccinated, the only choice you have is a private vehicle because you won't be allowed onto any of the public transportation. Next thing is coming in February 28th of 2022. If you want to get on a flight to leave Canada, you have to be vaccinated. So if you're not vaccinated, you don't want to get vaccinated, and you're in the country, you're going to have to leave before then if you want to make sure that you're going to get out. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck. So the real trend for 2022 seems to be vaccinations. You need to be vaccinated, or the odds of getting into the country or out of the country or moving around the country are going to be extremely limited. And what we might see, I mean, with the new variant and everything, is they're really pushing the boosters. So as it stands, vaccinated is 2 doses, and you would have had to receive the last dose at least 14 days ago. But we might have to get boosters to now be considered fully vaccinated. We don't know. But as it stands right now, the 2 doses or the one of Johnson & Johnson is fine. But these things can always change. As we saw, certain countries from Africa were restricted entry into Canada. Other countries could be added to that. We could close the borders again, depending how bad the variant gets. So we would love to say that we're over this, but what we've seen recently with them restricting the travel from Africa is we're not, and they are willing to stop certain people from entering the country. So you need to be mindful of that. Trips, plans, it can all be canceled, it could all be delayed. But the main thing is to be vaccinated if you want to come in and stay in, because with all the restrictions we're seeing in place, this is really where they're going. And also, if you are here and you want to go anywhere, most of the places are requiring proof of vaccination to get into buildings. So it's just something to think about and to take note of, because that seems to be the biggest thing that we see all over the place and definitely going to be implemented in 2022 is that vaccination requirement. The other thing, we have an exciting new Saskatchewan, apparently, provincial nominee program that's going to be opening. The details should be coming out this month. They're going to be targeting certain occupations, so we'll have to wait and see the full details of that. The other thing is Ontario has said that they are going to take more entrepreneurs under their entrepreneur program than they have previously. The entrepreneur program right now, it's kind of broken up into people who want to either start up or purchase a business in the Greater Toronto area and then outside the Greater Toronto area. So they want to focus on bringing entrepreneurs into the areas outside of the Greater Toronto area. So if you are an entrepreneur, you want to start a business or you want to purchase an existing business in Ontario but not in the Greater Toronto area, there could be some opportunity for you on that. So if you have any questions, you can contact us directly about those programs. So thank you guys, as always, so much for tuning in. And don't forget to give the video a comment if you have any questions, or a like if you enjoyed it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you can stay up to date with all the latest Canadian immigration news and updates.